Right now on Morning News Now, targeted this morning, former President Donald Trump is taking aim at special counsel Jack Smith. Trump is now facing what would be an unprecedented third indictment, this time over the federal investigation into efforts to overturn the 2020 election.
If you say something about an election, they want to put you in jail for the rest of your life. It's a disgrace.
We have team coverage with the latest developments this morning, plus reaction from Washington and how it could all impact his 2024 campaign. Also this morning, hot streak. Another day, another triple-digit high for much of the U.S., with some of the hottest cities challenging their own heat records. Meanwhile, parts of the Midwest are bracing for heavy rain and flash flooding. We are tracking it all. Not a toy, a life-saving lesson for kids and parents alike. Why researchers say a 1-minute video could make all the difference in keeping children safe around guns. And sounds like summer, whether you're on the beach, at the pool, or keeping cool indoors. We all have our own go-to playlist that puts us in that summertime mood. Well, now Spotify is tracking which tunes are trending. We will break down who's on top of this year's summer soundtrack. That's always a debate, right? What's the sound of the summer? Well, good morning. I'm Savannah Sellers. Joe's off this morning. Thank you very much for joining me on a busy news day. We're going to get started this hour with the growing fallout and reaction to former President Donald Trump, who is once again a target of another federal investigation. Two sources with direct knowledge of the matter confirm that Trump has received a so-called target letter from special counsel Jack Smith, notifying him that he is under investigation by a Washington-based grand jury examining the January 6th riot as well as efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Well, the news initially broke when Trump posted a statement himself on social media yesterday, calling the special counsel leading the probe deranged Jack Smith. This is just the latest potential legal issue for the former president, who already faces charges in Manhattan related to alleged hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. You might remember that. And then federal charges in Florida over his handling of classified documents. Meanwhile, then in Georgia, a grand jury there is preparing to hear evidence in an investigation into possible election interference in that state, which could potentially lead to additional charges there. Well, for his part, Trump has denied all wrongdoing. There is, of course, a lot to dig into this morning. We have full coverage with reaction from the presidential campaign trail that followed in Washington and the latest on the legal implications. Look at that team on your screen. We're going to get started with NBC News Justice reporter Ryan Riley in Washington. Ryan, good morning. Thanks very much for leading us off this morning. So let's just start with teasing out this particular investigation, because as I just laid out, there's a lot going on, and this is one of two investigations that special counsel Jack Smith is overseeing. And this one is the one that's related to alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. Remind us of this.
Sure. Yeah, arguably the most essential of all of these, because it has to do with that peaceful transfer of power and efforts to stop it. You know, this is shorthanded often as the January 6th investigation, but really it's broader than that. It's about a lot of Donald Trump's actions between the time that he lost the election and January 6th, including this fake elector scheme in which a number of people across the country in states that Donald Trump lost insisted that he won and purported themselves to be the electors that would then go through the process of going through the Electoral College and having the certified on January 6th. In fact, some of these slates of fake electors were delivered just before January 6th by one of Donald Trump's campaign aides who has already spoken with the grand jury. So, you know, producers have been camped out here at the federal courthouse in D.C., sort of trying to see who they could spot going up to the third floor for several months now. And we've seen, you know, the slow trickle of individuals come in, and it's sort of been building up to this moment. But getting the target letter is an indication that we're really at the end of the road here, giving Donald Trump a final chance to come in and sort of tell his story, maybe head off an indictment, something he's very unlikely to do, and that most criminal defense lawyers would suggest is a terrible idea for a defendant to do, but does indicate that he's almost certain to be indicted. So really getting to the crux of this here, and one of the most important investigations that has been done really in American history, and one of the most important ones that Donald Trump is facing at this moment.
So, Ryan, the former president says that his attorneys received this target letter on Sunday and that he's been given 4 days to come to Washington and tell grand jurors his side of the story. That would give him until tomorrow. Any indication on whether that trip is happening?
For a few weeks now, June 20th or July 20th, rather, has been a date I've been a little bit focused on because, we have we have someone we know who is coming in to testify before the grand jury tomorrow. It was sort of getting towards the end of the road. And I think that was a date that, this could be as soon as potentially tomorrow. So I think that is an important date. It doesn't guarantee that that's when they're going to actually return this indictment, but I think it certainly suggests that within the next few weeks, because this grand jury typically meets on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that's when we've seen them at the federal courthouse and when they've heard testimonies. So, if it's not Tuesday, there's always the potential, of course, that they come in on an extra day, maybe a Friday or a Monday. But I think, Thursday or Tuesday could be the potential days we should be looking at here in the future.
And also, Ryan, does this target letter ultimately mean the special counsel's close to wrapping up this investigation as a whole?
It does. Yeah. And I think that, obviously there's other components of this. You could always have other indictments down the line, people who could be added on. But right now, obviously, that's the ultimate, I think, goal, or the ultimate, the biggest target sort of in this investigation was Trump. So, it's hard to get a bigger name than Donald Trump on your indictment. But, that could be, we could potentially see charges, of course, against others in the same indictment or going forward because this investigation and the special counsel has been given the authority to investigate any efforts to obstruct the peaceful transfer of power.
All right, Ryan Riley, thank you so much for leading us off. We're going to stay on this now and bring in NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalas here on set with us. Hi, Danny. Good morning. So we know that this is not the first time that Trump has taken, these legal matters to social media, immediately kind of preempting us finding out in any other way by saying this himself. Sources tell NBC News that the target letter was sent to Trump last weekend. What does it mean that the special counsel sent a target letter to former President Trump? And what should we expect moving forward? I know that the word target is very specific.
It is. Informally, there are three categories that someone can be in the eyes of the Department of Justice. You can be a target, a subject, or a witness. And DOJ officials and AUSAs are quick to tell you that this is not a hard and fast rule. And frankly, this is something that is very fluid. Someone, for example, that is merely a witness, the lowest level of criminal culpability, could come in and testify and reveal something very damaging and go from witness to target, which is the highest level of prospective criminal culpability in this very informal labeling system. But all the target letter does is inform the person that they are the target of an investigation. It asks them usually to preserve all their evidence, and thirdly, to give a call to the AUSA. Of course, if they want to come in theory, they can come in, sit down, and talk with the AUSA, with the government. That almost never happens. As an attorney, if my client has a target letter and they're a target of an investigation, they're almost certain to be a criminal defendant anyway. So there's 0.0 point in me walking him in there to sit down and possibly give the government more information that can be used against him.
And then also, just very quickly, the language in the Truth Social post from the former president was that almost always means that arrest and indictment. It seems like we're all in agreement that that is the case.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's very rare that somebody is a target and then they get downgraded to a subject or a witness. And especially in this case, look, this is not the ordinary case. All of these cases against Trump. Keep in mind that every prosecutor, federal or state, that is working on this case or heading up an investigation wants to make sure their case is airtight before they go after the most elusive criminal defendant in American history. Someone, I mean, there may never have been another criminal defendant like this who, just by voting indications alone, might have arguably half the jury from the moment he gets in there, if, for example, half the jury voted Republican. So this is going to be a very difficult case for any prosecutor, irrespective of the charges. So you must assume that if they've deemed him a target at this point, they are very unlikely to downgrade that, to learn something revelatory from Donald Trump. If he came in to talk to them and he explained his side of the story, it's very unlikely that the government would say, oh, you know, the way you put it, maybe you aren't so guilty in our minds anymore.
Right.
So don't listen to what these former federal prosecutors, who are my friends and I love them dearly, don't listen to what they tell you that there's a possibility that they could reconsider this if Trump came in and talked to them. They're not reconsidering anything. If Trump's a target, it is highly, 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 highly likely that he is going to be charged.
So then that would be a third indictment and second federal. How do you manage these simultaneous investigations, potential trials, and then also, of course, there's a campaign going on, by the way. But what does that look like, those all at the same time?
I mean, this is something only someone anyone with the resources of a Donald Trump could really even begin to handle. Yeah, sure, if an indigent criminal defendant had all these cases pending, they would have court-appointed counsel. But, I mean, Donald Trump has so many complex cases in different jurisdictions that he has to deal with. I mean, you generally need someone local in that area, so he's got to have a team that has boots on the ground, but also they have to be, at least on some level, communicating with each other for planning purposes alone, for scheduling purposes. I mean, there are so many issues going on here, it's hard to even keep them all straight just in terms of scheduling court appearances, because it's not just trial, it's all these hearings that are pending. And to the extent some of these cases overlap, everyone needs to make sure they have not just a cohesive defense team, but that they stay on message and that they're consistent throughout their defense.
All right, Danny Savalas, as always, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. And now let's bring in NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Sirkin and talk reaction from Capitol Hill. Hi, Julie. Good to see you. Welcome back. Newly married woman. We appreciate you joining us this morning. It's really good to see you. So many Republicans were quick to defend Trump following this announcement that he received this letter. Tell us the messaging we're hearing from some of his more loyal allies in Congress.
Yeah, good morning, Savannah. It's so good to be with you. Look, you laid out some of those other issues swirling around, some of the other investigations. And if you paid attention to how lawmakers in Congress, particularly the former president's top allies, have responded there, then this should be of no surprise, right? In the first and second indictment, they went to his defense in the most part, of course, in the House, in specific here. Speaker McCarthy coming to his defense then and coming to his defense now with this target letter, trying to say that this was political, that this was a retaliation by Democrats, by President Biden, by his Justice Department, because the former president is doing so well in the polls. Take a listen to more of what McCarthy had to say yesterday.
Well, I guess under a Biden administration, Biden America, you'd expect this. If you noticed recently, President Trump went up in the polls and was actually surpassing President Biden for re-election. So what do they do now? Weaponize government to go after their number one opponent.
Look, you're not hearing that same reaction over on the Senate side, but what McCarthy is saying here is no surprise, because the former president is actually making calls to some of his top allies in the House. In many cases, you'd argue that's why he previewed this target letter. It's why he previewed his other indictments as well, to get that support and really rally his allies to his corner, and in many ways also test them.
Also, Julie, specifically, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz says he plans to unveil legislation that would defund this investigation, the investigation of special counsel Jack Smith that we're talking about, claiming that it is attacking democracy. Is there any indication that Republicans are planning a larger offensive in response to this possible indictment? And is it likely that a bill like that could go anywhere in Congress?
Dan, I'll work backwards there. Is it likely it'll go anywhere in Congress? No, because Democrats still control the Senate. And of course, both chambers need to move something like this for it to become law. However, Republicans are really mastering their leverage here and what they can have leverage in, which is the power of the purse. We've heard this even before Gaetz suggested this. We heard this from top Republicans on committees like Jim Jordan, who suggested that they should maybe defund the FBI and the DOJ as a whole for what they're saying is weaponization of government against conservatives. It's not likely that this will go anywhere, like I said, but it is just further messaging from Republicans. They're trying to really squeeze these government agencies, trying to break the trust with the American people in suggesting that this is solely political, that the former president does not deserve it. And it's really interesting, and it will continue to be so, to see how they tie this to the upcoming government spending fight. We have a shutdown deadline that is again looming at the end of September. So all of these pieces kind of fit into the same puzzle here. Whether this is going to go forward on its own and anything is going to happen, probably not, but they need bipartisan cooperation to do just about anything in Congress, and certainly funding and spending is at the top of that list.
All right, Julie Sirkin with an important piece of this puzzle this morning. Thank you so much, and congratulations again. Welcome back. Let's now take a look at how this latest development could impact the 2024 election with NBC's senior national politics reporter, John Allen. John, great to have you with us this morning. So look, I mean, as Julie just pointed out, these legal issues for the former president have not dented his position as the Republican frontrunner in the polls, and by quite a bit. I guess first, is there any indication that another potential indictment could take its toll on his chances? But also, what does that tell you just about the American voter and how they're feeling about this, similarly to what Julie just laid out about Republicans in Congress?
It's a great set of questions, Savannah. Let me start with this. Not only is it not dented Donald Trump's support, the past indictments, and so far this one. It has improved his support among Republican primary voters. At one point, before he was indicted in Manhattan, Donald Trump was in a place where he was being contested heavily by Ron DeSantis, whose poll numbers in some places were approaching Trump's. And now what Trump looks at across the board, whether you're talking about national polls or state-by-state polls, is 20 and 30-point leads over DeSantis and much greater leads over the rest of the Republican field. So this is the fact that he has been indicted has not hurt him at all. He's been able to use it to political effect with Republican voters. Many of them believe that, as these members of Congress that Julie was talking about have been saying, that the government has been weaponized against Trump unfairly. And then, in terms of what it says about the electorate, that the indictments don't matter, it says that there's a great percentage of Americans who are so tightly tied to their party leaders, who are so tightly tied to politicians that even the prospect of criminal prosecution doesn't move them away from them.
Yeah, I think it's such an important thing to keep front and center as we continue this conversation, though. It's about how so many people still feel about the former president. There's been a range of different reactions from Trump's GOP primary rivals. What are we hearing from them? There's been kind of this split in terms of when they're going after him, when they're not, some who will not touch it at all. What are we hearing now?
It's interesting, Savannah. I think most of them are kind of in a box of their own making, because January 6th, of course, happened more than 2 years ago, and most of them have taken a position on that in the past that makes it difficult for them to get off of it. So we heard yesterday Asa Hutchinson, the former governor of Arkansas, former governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie, both criticizing Trump. Both of them have said that January 6th effectively should disqualify him. And at the same time, we heard from some of the other candidates who are edging a little more toward criticism that what's going on in terms of a prosecution is unjust. Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, sort of epitomizes that with what he said. Let's take a listen to that.
I think it was shown how he was in the White House and didn't do anything while things were going on. He should have come out more forcefully. Of course that. But to try to criminalize that's a different issue entirely. And I think that we want to be in a situation where, you don't have one side just constantly trying to put the other side in jail. And that, unfortunately, is what we're seeing now.
And so what you hear there, Savannah, is DeSantis on the one hand saying, well, maybe Trump could have done a little more, should have acted more forcefully, but on the other hand saying, again, Ron DeSantis, former prosecutor himself, saying that the case against him is political and basically bunk.
John, also speaking of DeSantis, over the last week, you've had a ton of great exclusive reporting about various campaign struggles, from financing to staffing to firing. Tell us about what you're hearing there.
Thank you, Savannah. The most recent thing is that allies of Ron DeSantis, who have been clamoring for all kinds of changes on his campaign to get him to reverse direction, are pushing him to fire or demote Janera Peck, his campaign manager. For now, it appears that she's safe in her job, but how long that lasts is anybody's guess.
All right, John Allen, we appreciate you. Fabulous reporting as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now we're going to move off this story and turn to the ongoing heat wave rolling across the country. The record high temperatures are now giving way to new issues for millions of Americans. This was the scene in Phoenix yesterday. Look at these images. This is a dust storm blanketing the city with wind speeds up to 30 miles an hour. The storm brought dangerous conditions to an already fragile city, because Phoenix broke yet another record on Tuesday. This one set back in 1974. This is the first time the city has measured 19 days in a row where it was 110 degrees or hotter. 19 days, that's getting close to a month, 110 degrees. Just try to think about that. Meanwhile, air quality continues to be an issue for the Northeast. Massachusetts is warning residents to prepare for another day of haze brought on by Canadian wildfires. NBC News correspondent Blaine Alexander has more on the extreme weather.
Well, guys, good morning to you. We officially have 4 weeks of summer under our belt today, but with this relentless heat wave making it clear that it's not showing any signs of cooling down, a lot of people are really just kind of running out of ways to say that it's too hot. You know, typically on a summer day, you'd say cool off at a pool like this or any other place where you can find some sort of water. But really, when you're talking about temperatures, record-breaking temperatures that are plaguing more than 60 million Americans, being outside for too long just is not safe. So that's why experts are saying take this seriously. Make sure that you take cool showers. Don't use a fan as your source of cooling because that can give you a false sense of security without actually cooling down your body. Now, in addition to the heat, the other thing we're watching is air quality. It had been a really brutal 1-2 punch for some areas that were dealing with triple-digit heat and also dealing with diminished air quality because of those Canadian wildfires. The good news is, with a few exceptions today, the air quality is expected to pick back up and actually improve. But again, so many people dealing with heat. Back to you.
Absolutely. Blaine Alexander, thank you so much. Now let's take a closer look at how those deadly temperatures are hitting the south. Michelle Grossman is with us in studio this morning with the latest. Hey, Michelle, good morning.
Hey there. Great to see you. And we're looking at these temperatures continuing. No break in sight, at least for the near future. We're talking through the weekend and into next week. We have that area of high pressure just tacked in place. It's not moving. So 77 million Americans under some sort of heat alert today. A lot of excessive heat warnings. That's where you see that hot pink color. So Las Vegas, Phoenix, over to Dallas, Little Rock, Monroe, looking at some really dangerous temperatures. Corpus Christi, too, you're going to feel like 113 as you go throughout the day. So the Southwest continues to sizzle. We're looking at temperatures so hard to wrap your head around. Phoenix today, 117. That will probably break the record of 116. 116 in Palm Springs, 107 in Lubbock, 107 in San Angelo, 108 in Laredo. And into the southeast, we're looking really warm as well. So that was today. Tomorrow, we're looking at those temperatures pretty much the same. We're looking at a repeat performance again and again and again. Tucson tomorrow, 113, breaking a record of 109. At least that's what we expect. Albuquerque, 101, 112 in Las Vegas, and 105 in Austin. And this is where it gets even tougher, right? It's not going to end. We're looking at Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with those temperatures into the 110s. So 119 on Friday, Saturday, 118. This is Palm Springs. And that's going to continue. The southeast continues to sizzle. It's not just the heat, but it's the humidity, too. We're factoring that high humidity. It's going to make it feel even worse than it actually is. So we're looking at temperatures into the hundreds, into the 90s. You factor in that humidity, feeling like 116 in Corpus Christi. It'll feel like 104 in Tampa, feeling like 106 in Miami, and it will feel like 105 in Charleston. This, too, lasts throughout the weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, into the upper 90s in Jacksonville, right near the 100-degree mark on Friday, and then into the mid-90s in Tampa. That doesn't sound that bad when you factor in the humidity. It'll feel like over 100 degrees. That continues to be the big story. No relief from the heat, but we're also tracking the chance for severe storms. That's through the upper Midwest into the Central Plains. Could see some really gusty winds, some large hail with that. And there is a flood risk today in the Tennessee Valley. We're already seeing flooding happening right now, some water rescues. That flooding concern will return to the Northeast tomorrow. Here's the setup. We have a pair of cold fronts that are moving through. The first one's going to bring the chance for flooding to the Tennessee Valley, as I just talked about. And then we're looking at those line of storms developing with that daytime heating in the upper Midwest and also the Central Plains.
Oh, I've said it before. I'll say it again. Climate anxiety. There is just so much going on. When you see something like that happen in Phoenix, that dust cloud we showed.
That's a really good way to put it, right? It does invoke that anxiety.
Absolutely. We really need to keep talking about it. Michelle, thank you so much. Sure. Great to have you here with us. Well, coming up on Morning News Now, an incredible story of survival.
I'm just so grateful. I'm alive, and I really didn't think I'd make it.
Later this hour, hear from the sailor now back on land after months lost at sea with his dog. First, though, right after the break, new information about an American soldier detained in North Korea after running across the border. We will be right back. We're back with new details about an American soldier being detained in North Korea after running across the demilitarized zone and into the country. It happened in an area known as the Joint Security Area. That's along the border between North and South Korea, where private groups offer tours sponsored by the United Nations. Well, the soldier, Private Travis King, somehow joined one of those groups and crossed the border. According to the Associated Press, he was due to be sent back to the United States, where he could have faced disciplinary action for assault. NBC News foreign correspondent Matt Bradley is in Seoul and joins us now with the latest. Matt, good morning. So we're getting a lot more details than we had yesterday and understanding this picture a little bit more. What else do we know about Private King and how he was able to escape and get across to the border?
Yeah, actually, a picture of Travis King, Private Travis King, is coming into sharper focus. Actually, quite literally, his picture is something we have now. And so that has sort of built out this image of this looks like a very disturbed young man who was arrested at least twice here in Seoul, both of them for what sounds like late night incidents that sounded like they were in kind of bars or nightclubs. He was arrested once, and he actually did extensive damage to a South Korean police car, and for that, he was fined. He also assaulted what looked like a friend or someone he met at a nightclub around that time a couple of months ago. And then it looks as though there may have been yet a third assault that happened back in May. And for that, he was actually serving 2 months in a South Korean prison, as a uniformed U.S. officer. So as you mentioned, he was on his way back to the U.S., where it was likely that he was going to be facing further discipline in the U.S. He seemed to escape the military minders who were watching him board the flight to go back to the States, and instead went on one of these common tour groups to Panmunjom. You can get that right here in Seoul. You sign up, they take you on a bus all the way up to the border, and you get to see exactly what Private Travis King and the rest of that group saw. You get so close that you can bolt across, and that's exactly what we saw happen. Now, why he did it, what built up to that, that's all something that we're still very curious about and still trying to find out.
So, Matt, what's the reaction in Washington, and what's the Pentagon saying about this?
Well, the Pentagon gave, just the facts, described what was going on. We heard from the White House spokeswoman. She said that this was a situation where they're trying, first of all, to really nail down the safety of this private second-class Travis King, trying to see whether he's okay, whether he's being detained, whether he's being charged, what his circumstances are. What we're hearing from Washington isn't nearly as important as what we're hearing from North Korea, and that is absolutely nothing. Not from the officialdom, not from state media. So until we get some kind of indication that the North Koreans have even acknowledged Private King's existence, it's going to be hard to know exactly where this story goes from here.
Right.
Guys?
All right, Matt Bradley, thank you so much. Well, Israel's president is expected to address Congress today after meeting with President Biden yesterday. The White House said both leaders discussed regional security issues, while President Biden reiterated calls for a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Some members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, who have been strongly critical of Israel's treatment of the Palestinians, are expected to boycott the Israeli president's speech. Well, now for what else is making international headlines. Russia is announcing changes to the country's military eligibility. NBC News foreign correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now from Tel Aviv with more. Hey, Raf, good morning.
Hey, Savannah, good morning. Yeah, Russia is extending the age range in which men can be conscripted into the military as it struggles to raise the troops it needs to fight in Ukraine. Ordinary soldiers can now be called back into service until they're 55 years old, while the most senior generals can be mobilized again until they're 70. Russia has called up more than 300,000 men since a chaotic draft was announced back in September. In Thailand, a court has temporarily suspended a progressive lawmaker who hopes to become the country's next prime minister. The Move Forward Party won an election in May and appeared poised to lead the government. Now the party is saying its 42-year-old leader is still eligible to be prime minister despite the court's suspension. And finally, a story not of man bites dog, but mammal bites dinosaur. Archaeologists in China were stunned to discover a 125-million-year-old fossil of an animal about the size of a house cat with its teeth sunk into the side of a dinosaur 3 times its size. The mammal is called I'm going to try to say this right, Repenominus robustus. Not quite. And this is apparently not the first time it's been tangling with a much larger dinosaur. So, Savannah, it could be a good character in the next Jurassic Park. Right?
You've never heard of a Repenominus, Raf? I'm just kidding. I don't know either.
I tried that a few times before I came on. Still not getting it.
It's kind of amazing, though. All right, Rob, thank you so much. Well, this morning we're hearing from the 51-year-old Australian man saved from the South Pacific Ocean after he and his beloved dog, Bella, spent months drifting in the ocean. NBC's Miguel Almaguer has more on how he beat the odds and made it home safe.
Disembarking with a bounce from the ship that saved him, Tim Shattuck's weary sea legs are firmly planted back on solid ground. After being lost at sea for nearly 3 months, the rescue sailor thanked the fishermen who threw him a lifeline and plucked him out of the ocean.
Look, to the captain and this fishing company that saved my life, I mean, what do you say? I'm just so grateful. I'm alive and I really didn't think I'd make it.
Spotted bobbing some 1,300 miles off Mexico's west coast, Shattuck, who was stranded at sea with his dog Bella, was frail, worn by the weather, but determined to live when fishermen working on a tuna trawler suddenly found him.
Been through a very difficult ordeal at sea.
The Sydney sailor apparently ate raw fish and drank rainwater to survive.
I'm still very skinny. By the time I came here to the fishing boat, I was just eating so much food.
Shattuck and Bella were just weeks into their 3-month voyage from La Paz, Mexico to French Polynesia when he says a storm wiped out all the electronics aboard their catamaran. Left with only each other.
I'm just grateful she's alive. She's a lot braver than I am, that's for sure.
The two drifted for months, fearing the end could be near.
You know, the health was pretty bad for a while. I was pretty hungry and I didn't think I'd make it through the storm, but now I'm really doing good. When you get saved, you feel like you want to live. So I'm very grateful.
A grateful castaway finally headed home. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News.
Oh, what an amazing story, and he's got such an amazing attitude. We're so happy he and Bella are okay. Well, coming up, 4 mysterious deaths in Oregon now linked and a person of interest in custody. When we come back, what we're learning from investigators, plus new questions about 2 other deaths in the area that police say could also be connected. Also, Fitness Forward will break down who made this year's Fittest Cities list, including the city topping the list for the 6th year in a row. You're watching Morning News Now. We are back now with a troubling update in a series of deaths in Portland, Oregon. Police revealing that 4 recent cases are linked, and now they have a person of interest. NBC News correspondent Stephen Romo has more on the developing story.
After months of mystery shrouding a string of deaths in Portland, Oregon, the district attorney saying these 4 women's cases are linked. The Multnomah County DA's office says it's investigating the same person of interest in the cases of 22-year-old Kristen Smith, 24-year-old Charity Perry, 31-year-old Bridget Webster, and 22-year-old Ashley Reel. Authorities haven't released the identity of that person of interest or filed charges, but say they don't believe there's any active danger to the community right now. The causes of death for the 4 women are yet to be made public by the Oregon State Medical Examiner.
There are a variety of ways that they could connect these cases. We still don't know the type of weapon that was used, but there may be more evidence, such as seeing similar descriptions at multiple scenes or similar cars driven to and from scenes.
The 4 linked cases, part of 6 deaths in the area, although authorities have not connected the other 2 yet. The women's bodies discovered between February and May, and all within the same 100-mile radius around Portland, sparking fears about a serial killer, a term law enforcement has not used.
I think police are operating always in a position of caution unless they have evidence that links all 6. They are still saying we reserve the right to investigate these other 2 as being unrelated. Coincidences do happen.
Joanna Speaks is one of the victims not yet linked to that person of interest. Her family, like the others, are desperate for answers.
Why did this happen? How? It just doesn't make sense. We're trying to cover all the bases, but we don't know.
Our thanks to Stephen Romo. Well, right now, 4 local law enforcement agencies are looking into these cases. The FBI has reportedly offered to help as well, but for now, it remains a local investigation. We will certainly update you on that. Well, now it is time for your weekly checkup. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the role that gun safety education can play when it comes to preventing potentially deadly accidents in the home. Plus the fittest cities in America and how to keep fit if you only have time to hit the gym on weekends. So much good information this morning that Dr. Natalie Azar is going to bring us. She joins us now on this. Hello, good morning. Great to have you with us. So the leading cause of death for children, good morning, in the U.S. are these gun-related injuries, doctor. So a new study found that using videos to educate children on gun safety could potentially decrease gun accidents at home. I mean, that sounds like it makes sense. So Dr. Azar, how was this study conducted and how did doctors come to this conclusion?
Yes. So this was a fascinating study, you guys. They basically took over 200 kids between the ages of 8 and 12. They showed half the group a video instructing them on car safety, and half of them got a video instructing them on gun safety. Then they put all these kids in a room with a bunch of different toys, and they also had an unloaded but not locked up gun in a drawer. The worst news about this all is that almost 100% of the kids actually found the gun. But the best news here is that the kids who actually saw the video about gun safety were 3 times more likely to tell an adult that they found a gun. They were 28% less likely to touch the gun. And if they did touch the gun, they were less likely to pull the trigger. So the doctor's orders here, I think, are so straightforward. You need to be teaching your children at the earliest age about gun safety. Not everyone can provide a video like this, but teaching them when they're young about the dangers of guns are so, so important. And you can start, honestly, when your children are, 5, 6, 7 years old.
Absolutely. Wow. I mean, the changes there, those numbers are just staggering. It's incredible how much good that video did. That's great to hear. Doctor, also, first of all, what's your dog's name?
Oh, my goodness. Rocky, and I'm also dog-sitting Wolfie, my nephew.
Okay, good morning to Rocky and Wolfie, who are also with us for this hit. No, it's okay. It's funny. All right, Doctor, the American College of Sports Medicine's Fittest Cities annual ranking is out. 6th year in a row, same city, Arlington, Virginia, takes the top spot. What is it about that city that makes it so fit?
I know. And if you take, you want to look at that list and think that you're going to see your own city on there, right? So don't be too disappointed if you're not there, because it is a pretty big ranking. There's 100 cities on this list. But essentially, they're taking into account 5 different categories. They're talking about health behaviors of the community, health outcomes, the environment, and this includes things like air quality, which we've talked a lot about recently, things like farmers markets and parks, recreational facilities, and also the policy and funding in that city that goes into making your city a fit city. So the doctor's orders here, I think, are kind of interesting. When especially kids, young adults who are moving out of, cities and they're moving to suburbs or they're thinking about a place to raise their family, you take a lot of things into consideration. Let's say that you choose a city that's not on this high list, but you can see what sort of health behaviors you can also engage in, to be a healthy, fit person. But if you're looking for an environment that's going to be conducive to a very healthy lifestyle, you can certainly take a look at this list and choose one of those cities.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Kind of surprising to me, some of those. All right, our next study is good news for all those people who are strapped for time during the work week. I mean, aren't we all? But new research shows that stacking workouts on the weekend can still pack a punch. What does that mean, doctor?
Right. So I'm sure we've all heard of this term of the weekend warrior. That is someone who maybe works Monday through Friday and doesn't have time to work out and then stacks their 150 minutes of recommended exercise into the weekend. Are they as fit as someone who spreads it out over, over the entire week? This is one of the largest studies to look at this. And this is what they actually found, that people who did at least half of that over the weekend were just as likely to have a heart attack, stroke, atrial fibrillation, congestive heart failure as people who spread it out. Now, the biggest concern that some people have raised about this is like, well, if you're doing it all on the weekend, are you more prone to injury? So the doctor's orders here are that if you're not doing anything during the week, please be sure to warm up. Please be sure to cool down. But, there's been a lot of data in the last couple of years about even high-intensity interval training. You know, people just don't have the time to spend 3 hours a day going to the gym. You can really accomplish and achieve a lot of cardiovascular fitness, even with shorter amounts. And I think this is a great take-home message for people who only work out on the weekends and feel bad about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, if you're doing anything, that's good. I'm a Pelotoner, and they always tell you make sure you're stretching, the water, the recovery is so important,
Exactly.
which I think is part of what you're saying. All right, Dr. Natalie Azar, Wolfie, Rocky, thank you all. We appreciate you coming on this morning. See you soon. All right, coming up, the future of driving could be just down the road. When we return, we'll take you to China, where automakers are speeding up efforts to go all electric. And one of the world's biggest sports is coming to America. More on the brand new Cricket League that's got fans making noise. Next on Morning News Now. Welcome back. Well, when it comes to electric vehicles, it's not Japan or Germany that's looking to be the biggest competitor to the U.S. in that market. As NBC News foreign correspondent Janice Mackey-Freyer explains, China is looking to become the global leader when it comes to getting EVs on the road.
In the world's largest market for electric vehicles, this is a glimpse at the future. At Shanghai's International Auto Show this year, the heavyweights aren't GM or Ford.
It's massive improvement in terms of the user experience.
They're Chinese brands like BYD, Li Auto, Xpeng, and Zeekr, making sleek-looking cars that are high-tech and affordable.
When you drive a Chinese vehicle today, it's far different than 10 years ago. They are better built, and the quality overall is much more competitive with what you would see from a U.S. automaker or from a European brand.
Foreign automakers, including American brands, are now paying attention to Chinese players like BYD. It's #1 in China. And the competition is now so intense, it sparked an EV price war here.
NIO cut its prices by nearly 10% on all models. Competition is fierce, says CEO William Li. You can be ahead today, but not in a few months. The boom in electric vehicles is why China is now the largest auto exporter in the world, tripling in just 5 years to overtake Japan. That's thanks largely to sales in Europe, as most major Chinese brands aren't yet available in the U.S. due to tariffs put in place during the Trump administration.
Any vehicle built in China and exported to the United States comes with a 25% tax on it. That just makes those vehicles far more expensive, and it's hard for them to be competitive here in the U.S.
China's growth in EVs is what some experts call a Chinese storm in the global industry.
It's surprising that what we felt is coming is actually really coming, and it's true.
China leads the EV race in part because it controls the supply chain of raw materials for batteries. 28% of the world's lithium, 41% of cobalt, through stakes in mines on 5 continents. China also dominates processing for battery components.
Then release the brake,
yes.
And it just takes over.
Government subsidies keep the industry charged too. And China is now also restricting exports of some key metals in an escalating tech war with the U.S. Right now, Chinese EV companies are scaling up and going global. The challenge for automakers everywhere will be keeping up. Janice Mackey-Freyer, NBC News, Hefei, China.
Let's get to some financial headlines now. There's tension in the air as another pilot union is set to vote on a new contract deal. CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us with that and other money news. Hey, Silvana, good morning.
Hey, Savannah, good morning. That's right. So American Airlines Pilots Union is warning its new contract deal is in jeopardy after rival United raised the bar. Now, American's pilots are scheduled to start voting next week on the 4-year contract, which includes a more than 40% pay increase and other benefits. But Reuters reports in a memo, the union says the proposed pay and benefits pale in comparison with United's tentative deal, which includes more days off and restrictions on some standby assignments. A spokesperson for American says the company will work with the union. Meta is rolling out new features for Threads, including a Follows tab, which will presumably make it easier for people to see who's following them. Now, you'll also be able to use a translate button to read text in other languages and more easily read posts from people who you don't follow. Now, advertisers have told CNBC they hope Threads will introduce more features such as a chronological feed and hashtag searches, which would help them create better ad campaigns. And Dead & Company wrapped up its final tour this past weekend with 3 sold-out shows at Oracle Park. That's the home of the San Francisco Giants. Now, those final shows are estimated to have generated $21 million in direct spending and create a more than $30 million impact on San Francisco's struggling economy. Wow. Dead & Company was formed in 2015 by the surviving members of the Grateful Dead, along with John Mayer. The final tour drew more than 840,000 fans and grossed a record-breaking $115 million, Savannah.
That's pretty incredible what they did for the San Francisco area. All right, Savannah, thank you so much.
You got it.
Now to sports, and one we definitely do not cover very often, cricket. But get this, it is the second most popular sport in the world. And now there's a push to gain fans here in the U.S. NBC News correspondent Noah Pransky spoke with players and founders from a new league trying to bring cricket to America.
Out of the 8 billion people in the world, about 2.5 billion of them watch cricket. And when some of the sport's biggest stars descended upon New York City, there were no screaming fans.
Shadab, 1.8 million Instagram followers. You have more than Aaron Judge, the MVP of Major League Baseball. What's America missing in cricket?
They haven't seen shut-up selfies yet.
Yeah. I just think it hasn't been here, so the game of cricket hasn't been exposed here.
But this summer, it will be. It's the inaugural season of Major League Cricket. 6 founding teams will compete over 2 weeks. And no, that's not the length of a single match.
The cricket that someone might have in their head in America that lasts 5 days, that is not what you guys are playing here.
No, definitely not.
This league uses the more modern version of cricket called T20, where a game lasts about 3 hours. And unlike previous attempts at organized American cricket, Major League Cricket will feature many of the very best players in the world.
It's not just one player or 2 or 3. Every team has 6 or 7 international players who are stars in cricket, recognized names internationally.
A chance for Americans to see these legit sports celebrities.
In Asia, it's a religion, so our ex-Prime Minister is Imran Khan, who played cricket. He was a winning World Cup captain.
But before Americans can embrace the second most popular sport in the world, we need to learn a few of cricket's intricacies, like pitching with a straight arm.
Pulling it down, this one comes straight over the top. Go over the top.
Do that.
Yeah.
Catching with bare hands,
so that I can do.
The field is an oval, so we can hit the ball all 360 degrees.
And of course, hitting with a flat bat.
A golf swing crossed with a baseball swing, and that's it.
They've got a long way to go before the average American sports fan is familiar with all those moves. But league founders estimate there are already around 8 million immigrants in the U.S. from big-time cricket-playing countries. And the project has some high-profile investors like Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. Starting with a sold-out opening night, Major League Cricket is on a mission to win over some new fans.
All right, Noah Pransky, thank you so much. How interesting. Coming up, hot sun and cool tunes. Up next, we'll go through Spotify's list of top songs for the summer. This is Morning News Now. Welcome back. Well, whether you are on a road trip, whether you're hanging out by the pool, or maybe you're just indoors with the AC on since it's so hot everywhere, it seems that every summer season comes with its own unique soundtrack, tunes to help you set the summer mood. And every year, Spotify predicts which songs it thinks will be cool for the summer, which, by the way, is a great song by Demi Lovato. This is going to help you build that perfect playlist. Spotify trend expert and podcast host Leah Palmieri is here now with more on all of these hot summer songs. Leah, thank you for joining us. This is so much fun.
Thank you for having me, Savannah.
I love when there's always kind of a debate, like, no, this is going to be the song of the summer. This is. So you're going to give some real numbers here. So first, just tell us how Spotify does this. What is it that goes into picking these songs?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's a vibe, right? These are songs, like you said, you're listening at the beach, at the barbecue. There's data involved. We're seeing when the temperatures are rising, so are the streams on these songs. Also, I'm so lucky. I work with a team of genius editors, and it's their job to really have an ear for this. They know when they hear a song, this one's going to be a hit. Now, they also like a cheesy pop song, too, so that's why I love them. But they really can pick out the good ones.
I love it. All right, so it's time. Let's see. Some of these, we've got a graphic, I think, that's going to show us some of these songs of the summer. There we go, number one. I don't know if there's actually, if these are numbered, but I appreciate whoever put Cruel Summer at the very top of the graphic. I mean, first of all, can I just say, as a Swiftie, Taylor has the right music for every season, but Cruel Summer, it's in the title. Such a good one. Tell us about some of the songs on this list.
Okay, great. So there are over 36 million user-generated summer-themed playlists. I bet Cruel Summer is on a lot of them.
Yeah.
Cruel Summer, in particular, we saw in April and May, in the lead-up to summer. It was streamed almost 100 million times. So people were bracing themselves.
Well, you know what that was in conjunction with was her Eras tour.
Eras tour.
And it's the second song in the show, but, you know.
Yes. Yes.
Who's counting?
I mean, also, happy Barbie week to you, too.
I know.
So, yeah.
Look at I know I'm doing the Barbenheimer story today. So
absolutely.
Costume.
So we saw Dua Lipa's Dance the Night on that list as well. Yes, absolutely. And it's not summer without a Bad Bunny song, too. So,
oh, my goodness.
Of course, he's on there.
Again, not any season without Bad Bunny, but yes, certainly fun in the summer. He's so amazing. Okay, for these next four, I think actually we're going to talk about Bad Bunny, just as popular as ever. Tell us about some of the other standouts. I think this is just like maybe a little farther down that list.
Yeah, I mean, country, we always see a big uptick in country songs. Luke Combs, his cover of Fast Car is on there. Morgan Wallen, of course, just the biggest deal right now.
So true.
Yeah, so you're definitely seeing that. Also, in Latin music, too. Peso Pluma, do you know him yet?
Oh, yes.
Okay, yeah. So he's bringing regional Mexican music to a global stage, and everyone everywhere is loving it. And if you want to know what people are listening to around the world, Spotify's For the Record blog has this really cool interactive heat map. You can click around,
gosh, that's awesome.
to different countries and different cities, and you can see the top 5 songs this week in places all over the world. It's really cool.
Oh, my gosh, that is so cool. Well, happy summer. Happy listening. Thank you so much for joining us, Leah Palmieri. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Savannah.
Thank you. See you soon. Well, that does it for this hour of Morning News Now, but the news continues right now. Good morning. I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for joining us on a Wednesday. Joe is off today. Right now on Morning News Now, former President Trump firing back, lashing out at the target letter he says he received from the special counsel investigating efforts to overturn the 2020 election. We've got full coverage this morning with the latest on where the investigation stands and his response on social media, plus reaction from Capitol Hill and from his challengers on the campaign trail. Also this morning, a blazing haze. Tens of millions of Americans are waking up yet again to heat advisories and smoky skies. The dangerous heat is testing the nation's patience and breaking new records this morning. It's also, of course, a safety concern. In Phoenix, temperatures haven't stayed this high for this long in half a century. There is no end in sight. We've got your forecast as you head out the door this morning. Plus, an American in North Korea. We have new information this morning about the U.S. soldier believed to be in custody there, including how the Defense Department says he, quote, bolted across the border from South Korea. What we're learning about that soldier's troubled past this morning and the efforts now underway to bring him home. And billionaire dreams. Don't worry, nobody's hit that growing Powerball jackpot yet. That also means you haven't either. Sorry. Get this. It's now up to $1 billion ahead of tonight's drawing. So could you be that lucky winner? We've got the odds. We know they're never great, but we'll bring that to you later in the hour. Thanks again for being here with us. It's a busy news morning. We're going to get started with the potentially growing legal trouble for former President Donald Trump. Yesterday, he announced he has received a target letter from the special counsel investigating his alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election. That sets the stage for a second possible federal indictment after a federal grand jury in Florida charged Trump with 37 counts in connection with his handling of classified documents and alleged efforts to obstruct that investigation. The former president pleaded not guilty to those charges. There's growing reaction and fallout this morning to this latest development, and we, of course, have full coverage for you. We are going to get started with NBC News senior Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Hake in Washington, one of our fabulous team members you just saw there. Hi, Garrett. Good morning.
Hey, Savannah. Good morning to you. Yeah, look, the former president really scooped law enforcement with this announcement yesterday that he expects to soon face federal criminal charges for a second time. This time, it would be for his efforts to hold on to power after that election, which he lost. Now, the GOP presidential frontrunner wasted no time turning his latest legal challenge into fuel for his campaign. Former President Donald Trump now the target of a second federal criminal investigation, focusing on his efforts to stay in power after the 2020 election, attacking the special counsel in Iowa overnight.
It's a disgrace. If you say something about an election, they want to put you in jail for the rest of your life. It's a disgrace.
The former president says his attorneys received a letter Sunday giving him until Thursday to come to Washington and testify before a grand jury. A communication which Mr. Trump writes, quote, almost always means an arrest and indictment. It is unknown what specific charges the former president could face, but the special counsel's investigation covers any unlawful interference into the transfer of power in 2020, including the attack on the Capitol on January 6th and efforts to send fake Trump electors to Washington. On Tuesday, Michigan's Attorney General unveiled felony election law and forgery charges against 16 pro-Trump Michigan Republicans who signed certificates claiming they were the state's real electors in a state Joe Biden won. Some of those charged have denied wrongdoing. Former Vice President and 2024 candidate Mike Pence insists Mr. Trump should face political, not legal, accountability for January 6th.
History will hold him to account for his actions that day. But with regard to the prospect of an indictment, I hope it doesn't come to that.
A view echoed by Mr. Trump's top rival, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
I hope he doesn't get charged. I don't think it'll be good for the country.
Mr. Trump could soon face new criminal charges in Georgia, where a grand jury is set to hear evidence of 2020 election interference. He's already facing criminal charges in New York tied to alleged hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. Mr. Trump denies any wrongdoing. And he's pleaded not guilty to 37 federal felony charges in Florida related to his handling of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, announced by the special counsel last month.
We have one set of laws in this country, and they apply to everyone.
Now, on those classified documents charges, in a pretrial hearing Tuesday, the judge overseeing that case appeared skeptical of Trump's lawyers' push to delay the trial until after the 2024 election. She also questioned the Justice Department's position that a trial should begin as early as December. So the judge ultimately ended the hearing without setting a trial date, but said she would issue a written order promptly. Savannah?
All right, yeah, we're all waiting for that. Garrett, thank you so much. Joining us now is NBC News legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Glenn Kirshner. Glenn, always great to have you on with us. Thank you so much. Well, with this target letter now having reached Trump and his legal team, it seems pretty widely agreed, and I'd just like to hear you say that does mean that indictment is likely to come. How soon do we think that happens?
Well, I think the one data point we have, Savannah, on the timing front is in the letter. Reportedly, the prosecutors gave Donald Trump 4 days to decide whether he wants to appear before the grand jury. Now, I will say it is extraordinarily unlikely and unusual for a target of a criminal investigation to ever appear before a grand jury because he would be grilled by prosecutors for hours and hours. So I think once that 4-day deadline expires, I think we could see an indictment anytime after that. It could be a matter of days or perhaps weeks.
So, Glenn, talk to us then if, again, nothing is official until there is an indictment, but knowing that this target letter typically means that is coming down the pipeline here, what could potential charges be that the former president would face based on what we know right now from how this investigation has unfolded?
You know, it really is something of an embarrassment of prosecutorial riches. There is so much that Jack Smith could include in an indictment. I think the one thing we are almost certain to see is a conspiracy indictment, what we call a 371 conspiracy. That is a conspiracy to commit offenses against or defraud the United States. That could include obstructing the official congressional proceedings, that is, the certification of Joe Biden's win. It could include the fake elector scheme. It could even include an illegal pressure campaign on Mike Pence, trying to get him to sort of throw the election to Donald Trump. There are so many charges for special counsel Jack Smith to choose that, you know, we may see a rather modest indictment first. But what we know is in big cases, prosecutors will often issue a series of indictments, what we call superseding indictments. So just because we see some charges included in the first indictment doesn't mean that will represent all of the charges Donald Trump will ultimately face.
So, Glenn, there's been this ongoing investigation, lots of witness testimony. We've seen lots of drama play out around who would and would not come forward with their witness testimony, lots of subpoenas, all that type of stuff. So essentially, is what we're seeing right now that this is kind of nearing the end, that this target letter essentially gives the former president the chance or the opportunity and then the chance to ask him to appear, to be interviewed himself in front of this grand jury, but that if the assumption is that he doesn't do that, then this kind of wraps up? Does this tell you that this is the end of that investigation?
It does feel like Jack Smith is nearing the end. Another important data point on that front is when a target letter was sent to Donald Trump in connection with the documents case, which is now a prosecution up and running down in Florida. It was just a matter of weeks after that target letter was delivered that Donald Trump was indicted in the documents case. So I think we can expect to see the same thing here on the timing front.
All right, Glenn Kirshner, as always, thank you very much. Let's get more reaction now to this news with Julia Manchester. She's the national political reporter for The Hill. Julia, thank you very much for being with us. So first off, just tell us, was this just a matter of time based on your reporting up to this point of how this investigation was unfolding, the testimony that they had received? This did not come as a surprise to many people. Is that correct?
Yeah, good morning, Savannah. I don't think it was. It was absolutely a matter of time, and I don't think it was a surprise. This was definitely expected. However, I think it's just remarkable because we've seen sort of this drip, literally, with all of these indictments against Trump. Now, of course, he hasn't been indicted yet in this case, but we do know that whenever an individual receives a target letter, and Trump pointed this out in his Truth Social post, it does mean they will likely face charges. And it's not only, he's going to potentially face more charges, even, for example, in Atlanta. So it's just remarkable, I think, and it's the shock factor of that we've seen a former president who's running for president again, continuing to face charges in all of these legal issues.
Yeah, I think also, though, it's important to point out not just, somebody running for president, but also the Republican frontrunner. And we've seen now one indictment in New York, another federal indictment on different issues there. But that has not seemed to make any kind of dent in his support in the polling numbers that we've seen, which I think is an important piece of this puzzle, right? And also his GOP rivals for the Republican presidential nomination, the way that they've handled this is also interesting. I actually first want to play some of that, and we'll talk on the other side.
I don't think it serves us good to have a presidential election focused on what happened 4 years ago in January. And so I want to focus on looking forward. I don't want to look back. I do not want to see him. I hope he doesn't get charged.
We can't keep dealing with this drama. We can't keep dealing with the negativity. We can't keep dealing with all of this.
President Trump's words that day were reckless. I had no right to overturn the election. President Trump was wrong then. He's wrong now. And I believe that history will hold him to account for his actions that day. But with regard to the prospect of an indictment, I hope it doesn't come to that.
So there, history will hold him to account, getting critical, hedging on critical of the former president's actions. But then also we saw just there from all three of them, not necessarily wanting to see him charged. Walk us through this strategy that we're seeing from his GOP rivals.
His GOP rivals understand that, and even as crazy as it sounds, as Trump continues to face these charges, get indicted, politically, with the Republican primary base, it's only made him stronger. He's increased his standing in the polls in some cases. He's been able to make his fundraising much stronger. He's getting more attention, more national exposure, whereas some of these other guys have to fight to get in front of the camera, to get that same exposure that President Trump is getting. So it's incredibly ironic, but they do know that the GOP primary base is listening to that, and that there is a wide belief among Republican primary voters that there is a double standard in how Republicans versus Democrats are treated by the Justice Department. Interesting in South Carolina yesterday when Ron DeSantis was asked in front of a crowd about his initial response to the target letter sent to President Trump. And he talked about how, the Justice Department, these legal institutions are being weaponized for political purposes. There was a cheer and an applause from the crowd. So these Republican primary candidates very much understand that, but it puts them in a difficult position because for someone like Ron DeSantis, for example, He wants to be able to go on the offensive against Trump, but he feels at this point that he can't because of that base.
Yeah, absolutely. Also interesting because, of course, January 6th just generally is something that they've all kind of been on the record about, so sort of boxed in there. Julia Manchester, thank you so much. Of course, it'll also remain to be seen if this does change anything in polling. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Now to our other major story we are following, including extreme weather sweeping the country. States like Arizona are continuing to break records with triple-digit temperatures for nearly 3 weeks now. Experts are now concerned air quality may be compounding the effects of the heat. NBC News correspondent Blaine Alexander joins us now from Georgia with more. Blaine, this is just not good in so many different parts of the country. Good morning.
Well, Savannah, good morning to you. And you're absolutely right. You know, typically when you talk about a hot summer day, you go outside and you try and find a pool like this to cool off. But when you're talking about temperatures this high, just being outside can be dangerous. And of course, the other issue is air quality. While it is getting better across the board, there are some places that are still taking a hit from those Canadian wildfires.
I'm sweating.
With a heat dome covering the entire South from coast to coast, at least 11 states saw triple-digit temperatures Tuesday, with 5 hitting record highs. Phoenix has already made heat history, shattering a nearly 50-year record of consecutive days topping 110 degrees. Today will mark day 20, and that number is only expected to grow. 75-year-old George Jett is a bartender in Phoenix. He says he's never felt a summer this hot, this long, and says it's not only uncomfortable, but increasingly unnerving.
Well, I think anybody should be concerned about what's going on right now. It's certainly an aberration.
Officials say it's important to take proactive steps to stay safe amid the red-hot heat. Take a cool shower, cover windows with drapes or shades, and do not rely on a fan as your primary cooling device. They can give a false sense of comfort without actually reducing body temperature.
If your car breaks down, you definitely want to stay with the car, especially if the air conditioning is working, because you just want to stay inside, stay cool until someone can help.
Meanwhile, there is some relief for millions of Americans who have been dealing with smoky air tainted by Canadian wildfires. With exceptions for Massachusetts and eastern Virginia, air quality is expected to get better today. Elsewhere, still more rain. Another bout of flooding swept through New Jersey Tuesday, submerging cars and causing more damage. And getting back to that heat, we even saw a case where it impacted air travel. Yesterday, a flight scheduled from Las Vegas here to Atlanta had to be canceled because the air on board wasn't working properly. In fact, in a statement, Delta said that whatever the malfunction was led to uncomfortable temperatures inside the cabin. One person had to be treated for heat-related discomfort. Everybody was rebooked on different flights, Savannah, but when you consider the fact that it got up to 111 degrees in Las Vegas yesterday, you can understand just how uncomfortable it was inside that plane for a little bit.
Oh, my goodness. Not only uncomfortable, but dangerous, potentially, it sounds like. Blaine Alexander, thank you so much. Well, our extreme weather coverage continues with meteorologist Michelle Grossman with the latest on your forecast and tell us when this is going to stop. I don't think we're getting any relief here, but hi, Michelle. Good morning.
Hi there, Savannah. Great to see you. I wish I had better news, but we're going to see this heat continuing at least for the near future and across the South, the Southwest, into the South Central states, the Southeast, and we're going to see that heat expanding back into the Northwest as well. So this is what we're looking at today. No relief from the heat. That will be the story over the next few days. Severe storms are likely in the upper Midwest, also the Central Plains. That's also due to the heat. So we have a cold front moving through, some really warm air. That's going to spark some storms. And then we're looking at a flood risk because any of these storms in the Tennessee Valley, some scattered thunderstorms could unleash a lot of rainfall. So those are the major stories for today. This is a setup as far as that heat goes. We have that area of high pressure. We've been talking about it. Heat dome kind of linked in place. We have that jet stream so far to the north, sort of dipping a bit in the east. But as we go throughout the next couple of days into tomorrow, also Friday, Saturday, we're looking at that heat area of high pressure to move off to the west. So what that does is it brings up that jet stream. We see that heat all the way to the Pacific Northwest once again. We're going to see really high temperatures still in the Southwest. And then this jet stream is going to take a little bit of a dip. So we have that cooler Canadian air coming down. That's going to set up some really nice weather in portions of the Northeast, the Great Lakes, into parts of the Midwest. And then this is a look at Saturday. We're looking at record highs in the West. Once again, triple digits. We'll be talking about very hot and humid along the Gulf Coast states. and hot and humid too in the southeast, but really comfortable as we look towards the Midwest and also east. 77 million people impacted by heat alerts today. We have an excessive heat warning. That's in the hot pink. From the southwest to the south central states, major cities like Phoenix, Las Vegas, Dallas, Little Rock, Monroe. The southeast, you're going to be into the 90s. You factor in the humidity. That's where it's going to feel like over 100 degrees in many spots in the southeast. So taking a look at some of these numbers, 117 in Phoenix, 116 in Palm Springs, 102 in Albuquerque, 108 degrees in Loretto. So we're going to break a lot of records as we go throughout today and also tomorrow. Then we're going to keep that temperatures high in place in the southeast, Tallahassee, 97 degrees. You factor in the humidity, it will feel like 107. It's going to feel like 104 in Tampa, feeling like 106 in Miami. And we're looking at Charleston, you're going to feel like 105. So certainly steamy as you head towards the southeast. And again, that's going to spark the chance for some storms. We have two cold fronts that are moving through. The first one off to the east. That's going to bring some showers, some heavy thunderstorms with some heavy rain in portions of the Tennessee Valley. And then also that cold front moving through the upper Midwest and also the plains. That's going to bring the chance for some really large hail, some gusty winds. But look what happens tomorrow. We have that front that's going to impact the Northeast. So we have a renewed flood threat for the Northeast. That's tomorrow and also on Friday. We clear it out nicely on Saturday. So behind that, we're going to have a really nice weekend in the Northeast. But we have Thursday and Friday to get through. So we'll end it here. We have 8 million people at risk. We could see baseball-sized hail where you see that yellow especially, and those winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour.
Oh, my goodness, Michelle. I feel you need a break, too. I feel like you just have so much to be covering. This is so crazy.
And it does, I feel like it does invoke anxiety. Like,
oh, my
you just
goodness,
feel
no question.
so terrible for everyone who's dealing with this.
Absolutely. And then when you hear more about the wildfire smoke and the air again, it really is concerning. All right, Michelle, thank you so much.
Sure.
Well, this morning we are finding out more about the Australian sailor, and his dog who were lost at sea for months. They were finally saved by a tuna trawler after their boat lost power, leaving them drifting aimlessly on the Pacific. NBC News national correspondent Miguel Almaguer joins us now with more on this just absolutely amazing rescue. And also, Miguel, can I just say he has such an amazing attitude about this whole thing. Hi, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, incredible attitude after all of this time. Tim Shattuck appeared to be in a dire situation before he was rescued by those fishermen. He and his dog Bella only had each other as weeks turned to months lost at sea. Fearing the end could be near, he says he was saved just in the nick of time.
Disembarking his rescue ship with a warm embrace for the team who saved him. This morning, Tim Shattuck is the sea-weary castaway who's now sharing his harrowing story of survival with the world.
When you get saved, you want to live. So I'm very grateful.
After being lost at sea for nearly 3 months, the Sydney sailor indebted to the fishermen who plucked him out of the ocean.
I'm alive and I didn't think I'd make it.
Discovered bobbing some 1,300 miles off Mexico's west coast, Shattuck, who was stranded at sea with his new dog Bella, was reeled in by a tuna trawler after he was miraculously spotted by a helicopter working with the ship. Shattuck says he and Bella survived for months by drinking rainwater and eating a diet of raw fish.
So it was a lot of tuna, sushi. I'm still very skinny. By the time I came here to the fishing boat, I was just eating so much food.
Just weeks into their 3-month voyage from La Paz, Mexico to French Polynesia, Shattuck says a storm wiped out all the electronics aboard their catamaran. Holding on to each other, they survived against the odds.
She's a beautiful animal. I'm just grateful she's alive, She's a lot more braver than I am, that's for sure.
The two drifted for months, never knowing if a lifeline would come.
I would try and find the happiness inside myself, Things get tough out there, you have to survive.
This morning, the castaway back on land, but saying he'll never give up new adventures at sea.
This is just incredible, and I just love hearing him talk about his sweet dog, Bella. So you say he's not done with adventures. What's next for him?
Well, he's actually headed home back to Sydney. He's going to have to go through a couple of customs checks and as well as clear up another doctor. Now, just before he departed for that ill-fated journey, Shattuck actually met Bella on the streets of Mexico. He said the dog wouldn't stop following him, so he took her on the boat. Little did he know they would be in for a journey of a lifetime together.
Miguel, whoa, way to bury the lead. Are you serious? He just met Bella and she was following him.
They
That is so
just met
sweet.
and lifelong friends. Hey, they had that was a crazy experience. He said the dog wouldn't stop following him, so they became fast friends.
And you think that probably really made a difference to his whole mental state, just having a companion of some sort out there. Oh my gosh, wow. Miguel, incredible story. Thank you so much. Good to see you.
You bet.
Coming up this hour on Morning News Now, renewed tension in the skies this morning as a pilot shortage pushes America's major airliners to the brink. And now Congress is getting involved. Our Tom Costello has more on that later in the hour. But first, the mystery deepens surrounding the strange disappearance and resurfacing of that young Alabama woman. The new details this morning on what happened the night she went missing. All that and more coming up next. Stay with us. We're back with more questions than answers surrounding the disappearance of a young woman in Alabama. Carly Russell vanished after calling 911 to report a toddler walking on an interstate. Then, after more than 48 hours missing, she suddenly returned to her family at home. Police now say there is no evidence that a toddler was ever on the interstate. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock is in Hoover, Alabama with the latest. Hi, Sam. Good morning.
Yeah, Savannah, good morning. Hoover police also saying that cameras showed Carly Russell returning home on Saturday alone, and they are acknowledging right now rumors and misinformation in this case. What that means, we are expected to get more information this afternoon as new developments are already coming in.
This morning, new revelations from law enforcement about the case of Alabama woman Carly Russell. The investigation captured national attention as the community searched for the 25-year-old nursing student for days. This after she pulled over when she said she saw a toddler alone on the side of a highway Thursday. Russell called 911 and then vanished.
Her vehicle's unlocked, running.
Now, police say there was no evidence of a toddler abandoned in the area, adding, nor did we receive any additional calls about a toddler walking down the interstate, despite numerous vehicles passing through that area. The Hoover Police Department also writing in a statement that before her disappearance, Russell picked up snacks from a local Target. Those snacks were not found at the scene, though Russell's belongings, phone and wig were left behind. Russell returned on foot Saturday night, her parents describing her arrival to NBC News' Priscilla Thompson earlier this week.
She was not in a good state, so we had to stand back and let medical professionals work with her.
But they declined to go into more detail.
And can you tell me what happened Saturday night? Did you just get a knock at the door?
Anything leading to the case itself, we can't discuss that.
Police now say surveillance video shows Russell walking down the sidewalk alone, adding, when first responders arrived on scene, they found Miss Russell conscious and speaking. She was later treated and released from a local hospital. Russell's employer, the Woodhouse Spa Birmingham, saying overnight in a statement it was turning over everything it's uncovered to police. The mystery around the dramatic disappearance deepening as the investigation continues.
And so far, we have not heard from Carly Russell herself about what happened, only that conversation with her parents. Savannah, we also know police have interviewed her once at the hospital shortly after this happened, but they said in the statement that they're waiting for her to be made available before they can do more extensive questioning. Savannah?
All right, Sam, so many questions still, but just so happy that she is home. Thank you so much. All right, this morning we are learning more about the U.S. soldier who's been detained in North Korea after crossing the border. It comes at a time of rising tensions between the U.S. and North Korea and more missile launches from the regime. NBC's chief international correspondent Keir Simmons has the latest.
This is the 23-year-old U.S. soldier in North Korean custody this morning. A U.S. official says Private Travis King has served 2.5 years in the military. He bolted across the border, effectively handing himself over to Kim Jong-un's isolated government.
One of our service members who was on a tour willfully and without authorization crossed the military demarcation line.
Two U.S. officials telling NBC News he was supposed to have left the country. Another official said military police escorted him as far as they could go to an airport checkpoint. He then tagged along a commercial tour to the demilitarized zone and made the dangerous crossing. A tourist from New Zealand saying she witnessed the incident.
Suddenly I noticed a guy dressed in black in the
the US and South Korean soldiers sort of realised what was happening, chased after him, but they didn't catch him.
King's mother speaking out overnight, telling ABC News, quote, "I can't see Travis doing anything like that." The Associated Press reporting, according to US officials speaking anonymously, that King had been imprisoned in South Korea on assault charges and was released earlier this month. In 2017, we travelled to North Korea and saw for ourselves the tense and highly militarized border.
And we're not allowed to stay here for very long.
A US official telling NBC News escorts from the tour tried to chase the soldier but didn't catch him. In 2017, a North Korean soldier was shot multiple times as he dashed across the border to defect to the south. He had to be dragged in darkness to safety. That same year, US hostage Otto Warmbier was released after 18 months detention. He was in a vegetative state and died soon afterwards.
Keir, thank you so much. Well, at this point, the Pentagon says there has been no official word from North Korea on Travis's status in the country. Let's stay on some international headlines now, and also on North Korea just launching 2 short-range ballistic missiles, according to South Korean officials. NBC News correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us from Tel Aviv with the latest. Hi there.
Hey, Savannah. Yeah, that's right. North Korea fired a pair of ballistic missiles. That's according to the Japanese and the South Korean militaries. The launches came as the U.S. moved a ballistic missile submarine into a South Korean port for the first time in 40 years. The American military says the launches did not pose a threat to the U.S. or its allies, but does highlight North Korea's destabilizing behavior. Here in Israel, dozens of people were arrested overnight as mass protests continue to roil the country. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu appears poised to pass the first part of his plan to weaken the Supreme Court as early as this weekend. That's despite months of major protests and pressure from the White House to slow down. And finally, the play's the thing for a night of celebration with the king. King Charles and his wife Camilla hosted an event last night to mark 400 years since the first publication of Shakespeare's collected plays. The party at Windsor Castle saw several performances and was attended by Shakespearean legends, including Judi Dench and Vanessa Redgrave.
Wow.
So, Savannah, sounds like quite the party. Bummed we didn't get invited.
Exactly. Quite the party, quite the guest list. All right, Raf, thank you so much. Well, coming up, a conversation on obesity in younger Americans and whether some of those popular weight loss drugs like Ozempic or Wegovy should be used to treat it. The doctor is in right after this. Welcome back. A Texas judge is scheduled to hear a lawsuit today challenging the state's strict new abortion ban. These 4 women will testify at the 2-day hearing that begins today. These women filed their lawsuit back in March, claiming their medical emergency abortions were delayed or denied due to the state's ban. Under the state law, abortions are allowed if the pregnant person's life is at risk, but the language of the law does not clearly define what counts as a life-threatening emergency. According to experts, the outcome of this case could have far-reaching impacts, not just for the future of Texas's abortion law, but for future abortion bans as well. So, of course, we will keep you updated. Childhood obesity impacts approximately 1 in 5 kids under the age of 19. And this year, for the first time, the American Academy of Pediatrics is recommending that doctors offer weight loss drugs. These can be given to some adolescents as young as 12, and they include the hugely popular drug like Wegovy and Ozempic. NBC News medical fellow Dr. Akshay Sal has been following the developments and joins us now with his original reporting here. Dr. Sal, great to have you with us. So tell us more about these guidelines. I know this was a bit of a conversation to recommend these drugs to kids, to 12-year-olds. Well, tell us about them and how parents and teenagers have been reacting.
Yeah, good morning, Savannah. So, earlier this year, the FDA approved these drugs for adolescents with obesity, and then the American Academy of Pediatrics back in January, as you mentioned, recommended that doctors should actually offer this to families. And so we wanted to ask the question, how are patients and families, actually responding to this? Do they want the drugs? Are doctors even willing to prescribe it? Because it can be a little bit daunting starting these medications at, as young as 12 years old, as you mentioned. And, it turns out, we talked to multiple leading pediatric obesity specialists across the country, and And there is a lot of interest from patients and families about this, and doctors are more than willing to prescribe it. I think we've seen childhood obesity. Everything we've tried so far really isn't working as well as we would like. And so this is just another tool in that toolbox to fight it. But to answer your question, the response has been mostly positive around these drugs in children.
Let's talk about how effective they are also for these weight loss drugs in kids. What are you seeing in the patients that you've been following? Could some kids ultimately end up being on these long term?
That's the big question. The data right now shows that people who are on these drugs do need to keep taking them to keep that weight off. But in talking to the doctors, I asked the question, is that something parents are concerned about? And how do you broach that conversation with families? I mean, it turns out it's just like any other conversation for drugs like high blood pressure or drugs for diabetes or drugs for high cholesterol. Once you stop taking those, they also stop working. So the way the doctors are broaching this with families is think of obesity like a chronic disease, just like any of those other ones I just mentioned. If you stop taking the drug, the effects are going to wear off.
And what about any side effects in addition to just those effects of them generally? Have you heard parents or doctors talk about issues in kids?
Yeah, so there's good news and bad news. The good news is these drugs like Wegovy and Ozempic are much better tolerated than previous obesity medications that we had, and even weight loss surgery, which can cause a whole host of complications. But when talking about side effects, the big thing, the way this drug works, Savannah, it slows down the way food is digested. And if food is just sitting there in the stomach, that can cause problems like nausea and vomiting. And in a really small percent of patients, those side effects are bad enough where they actually have to stop taking the medication. But the good news, Savannah, these medications are very well tolerated. They're safe, at least in the short term. The big question, especially as we're starting kids as young as 12, how will this be in the long term? Is it safe to take for decades to come?
Absolutely. Lots remains to be seen. Dr. Sile, thank you so much. Well, coming up, there is a new battle brewing on Capitol Hill that could impact your next big vacation. Why a pilot's age is now in the national spotlight as airlines work to keep up with the post-COVID travel demand. That's next on Morning News Now. We are back with the big fight on Capitol Hill over whether to allow airline pilots to keep flying past the mandatory retirement age of 65. Well, Congress is set to vote this week to help address the nation's pilot shortage, but the pilots union is opposed to the move. NBC News correspondent Tom Costello joins us now from Reagan National Airport. Hi, Tom. I just combined your name, correspondent and Costello. Good to see you. Good morning. Tell us about this.
So listen, the bottom line here is that the pilots union, dominated by younger pilots, says that they are younger and they have fewer health risks than older pilots. Therefore, it's safer. However, a lot of senior pilots say, wait a minute, we are healthy, we're living longer, and guess what? We are better pilots in our 60s than we were in our 30s. So now, a year after that massive situation last summer where we had flight cancellations, not enough pilots, Congress may be about to raise the retirement age to 2 years beyond the current retirement limit. Despite an all-out push to hire more pilots faster, the nation's airlines are expecting a shortage of 34,000 pilots by 2030, after thousands left during the pandemic and with even more set to retire. Under U.S. law, airline pilots must retire at the age of 65, though many insist they're better than ever. American Captain Dan Goebel talked to us just before he was forced to retire. You're about to turn 65. Why do you want to stay in the cockpit?
Because I can do the job as well as a 40-year-old. I pass all my FAA check rides. I pass all my physicals, FAA-mandated physicals. And quite frankly, I've got more experience. Experience does matter.
All right, let's go gear down, flaps 30.
In Denver, United Airlines is certifying pilots round the clock who are moving up from smaller regional carriers, leaving the regionals short on pilots.
Our goal is to hire 10,000 pilots by the year 2030. Half of those pilots, 5,000, are going to come from the Aviate Academy down in Phoenix.
It was 2007 when Congress last raised the retirement age from 60 to 65. Now it may raise it again, this time to 67.
There's an absolute shortage of pilots, and we're seeing it. We see it every day.
Many other countries have higher or no retirement age, including Japan, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. But America's biggest pilots union argues it may not be safe to keep older pilots since many could have undiagnosed health issues.
Raising the retirement age from 65 to 67 has not been studied. There's no data to say that it's okay. And we don't do that.
Many airlines, the FAA and the White House also oppose raising the mandatory retirement age, arguing making this change without doing research and establishing any necessary policies would be outside the international standard. A U.S. change could force the international standard set by ICAO to also move to 67. Meanwhile, Erica Hettinga, part of the new generation of pilots, is now a United Airlines first officer and living her dream. You graduated with $100,000 in student loan debt.
Yep.
And yet you still want to do this.
Yes, I love it. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. It's an amazing lifestyle. I've seen the whole world. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
All right, if the U.S. were to raise its pilot retirement age to 67 ahead of the international standards, that would mean some U.S. pilots might not be able to fly internationally, might not be able to go to Europe. So the question is, well, how quickly would the international standards follow suit? Keep in mind, generally, the U.S. sets the model for the rest of the world. Back to you guys.
Tom, also quickly, before I let you go, I want to talk about the other end of this. So that was kind of lengthening this, but there's talk about shortening it on the front side, reducing the required number of hours that pilots have to have that they could be in the cockpit before being in the cockpit of a commercial airliner. Where does that conversation stand?
So that's the 1,500-hour rule. You must have 1,500 hours of flying time before you can be a first officer. The regional carriers, they want to cut that back because they need more pilots. I got to say, there's not a lot of appetite on Capitol Hill at this point, I think, to pass it. That 1,500-hour rule was instituted after that horrific crash in Buffalo about 10, 12, 13 years ago when we had some pilots who were not at the top of their game. Congress pushed that rule in effect. To cut it back, according to the pilots union, the FAA and others, would compromise safety.
Oof, yeah, absolutely. All right, Tom Costello, certainly a talker. Thank you so much. Let's get some financial headlines now. Google employees are testing out a new method to reduce cyber attacks. CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us once again with that and more. Hey, Silvana.
Hey, Savannah, good morning. Yeah, so Google is starting a new pilot program that will restrict internet access for some employees. CNBC has learned the company originally chose more than 2,500 employees to take part, but has now opened up the program to volunteers. Google will disable internet access on their desktops with the exception of internal web-based tools and company-owned sites like Google Drive and Gmail. Now, the aim is to reduce the risk of cyber attacks. Internal documents show Google employees are frequent targets, giving attackers access to user data and software code. Meanwhile, TikTok is expanding a test of its new music streaming service to Australia, Mexico, and Singapore. It initially launched the beta test in Brazil and Indonesia earlier this month. CNBC has learned users in those countries will get a free trial of the service for 3 months. TikTok Music reportedly offers song recommendations, real-time lyrics, and a collaborative playlist. TechCrunch says it also has a feature similar to Shazam, identifying songs by listening to them and letting users download tracks to listen offline. And Google Meet is testing a new feature to let users create unique backgrounds using AI by just entering a prompt. It will be available to people who have signed up to be part of Google's Workspace Labs. Participation is limited for now, and Google is asking users for early feedback. The feature could be a fun addition to Google Meet, letting users inject more personality into meetings with coworkers, friends, and family. Savannah. And what's a day without AI news?
I know. Never again. Silvana, thanks so much.
Sure thing.
Well, when there are big news stories happening, there are countless journalists and photographers who travel across the country to bring those stories to life. One of the biggest stories we have been covering day in and day out right now, natural disasters and extreme weather. This is from the heat to droughts to floods. Look at some of these images. Well, joining us now is one of those journalists, Justin Sullivan. He's a staff photojournalist for Getty Images, and he's covered many of these natural disasters for more than 2 decades. Justin, good morning. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Susanna. Good to be here.
So first, I just want to ask you, I mean, even just this morning, we've already had a discussion earlier in our show commenting on climate anxiety, especially with as much as we're seeing right now in terms of these extreme weather events and so many things piling on top of each other all across the country. I'm just wondering, as a photojournalist yourself, what type of an impact you think that people seeing this, actually seeing the front lines of one of these disasters, can have on ultimately potentially changing our behavior?
I think it's super important for people to see a visual of actually what is happening, especially when it comes to things like reservoirs and wildfires. If you don't see it with your own eyes, then you don't really have an idea that there's a bigger problem going on. Like the picture that's on the screen right there, that's Lake Mead, just outside of Las Vegas. It's, the visual of a lake or a reservoir that's almost empty really sends a message to someone that, yeah, there's a huge problem that's going on right now.
Absolutely. What are some of the stories that you photographed that have impacted you the most?
I think the one that really impacted me the most in recent memory was the Camp Fire in 2018 that wiped out the town of Paradise and killed 85 people. For me, that was the first fire in 20 years of covering wildfires that I was at a fire that killed so many people. And we had sort of this crazy access where we were able to photograph them removing these bodies from these burnt out homes. And I think those images really sort of impacted so many people because it was kind of the first time you'd seen the result of one of these fires, where usually you don't see how people were killed. You just see the pictures of the flames and the destruction afterwards. But I think seeing that there was a toll taken for that fire really impacted a lot of people.
Justin, I think a lot of people have been feeling with the wildfire smoke that we've been seeing coloring our skies, making it difficult to breathe, or just stepping outside in this heat. Some cities with 20 days now, over 110 degrees, things like that. People are feeling like, whoa, I'm starting to really notice this more than I had before. As someone who is sent to these places, do you feel like that? Do you feel that you're taking pictures more frequently, hearing about events, being sent to events more frequently that are of this nature?
Absolutely. And the nature of the events seems to be evolving as well. Like this year in California, we had a record amount of snowfall in the Sierras and these really wet rains that just kept coming and coming week after week, flooding big parts of California. So the frequency is definitely up. And I think, if we talk again about the Camp Fire, the destructive nature of these events seems to be increasing as well, at least from my perspective and the events that I've covered.
Absolutely. What do you hope someone takes away when they look at your photos?
I hope they see that there's a real problem. I hope they see something like this photo that's on the screen right now and see that a lake that once was, completely full is now nearly empty, and what the impact means to them when, they go to turn on the faucet and there might be water, or they might be paying more for water service now, all kinds of things. The trickle down of these events, definitely are felt by the public.
And finally, Justin, a lot of these pictures that you take are of events that are dangerous, not only startling or worrisome, but dangerous. And I know a lot of people at home always wonder, how do you get those images? How do you get so close? Are you concerned for your own safety? What's that like?
Yeah, it can be really scary to run into one of these fires because they're so unpredictable. And as of late, they are very erratic and dangerous. And so you definitely go into these situations thinking like, I could get hurt or I could see someone being hurt. And, it's scary for me at least. But, to get the pictures that are going to show someone what's going on the front lines is important to me and important for me to make that risk.
Absolutely. Justin, your work is fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us. An important conversation that they start each time people see them. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Savannah.
Coming up, polar opposite premieres going head-to-head at the box office this weekend. It's causing quite the stir online. The madness, slight confusion, and beauty of the Barbenheimer craze. That's next. All right, welcome back. Anyone selling tacos on a Tuesday now has the legal right to call it Taco Tuesday. That's because the restaurant, which actually trademarked the phrase, that happened, has relinquished their claim. It's called Taco John's. They're in Wyoming, and they had come under pressure from Taco Bell to give up that service mark, which it held in all states except New Jersey. Taco John's decided not to fight it in court and said they donate their legal fees to a nonprofit that gives assistance to restaurant workers with kids. Yesterday, after the news broke, Taco Bell tweeted, "Best Taco Tuesday ever." For now. There you go. Who knew? All right. Well, tonight's Powerball jackpot is now an estimated $1 billion for only the third time in the game's history. Well, there's still time to get a last-minute ticket if you're hoping to strike it rich. The drawing happens at 10:59 Eastern time tonight. And while the annuity is $1 billion, you could always take the cash payout that's valued at almost $517 million. By the way, the odds of winning are around 1 in 300 million. So, not impossible entirely. There you go. Well, in just a couple days, two of the most anticipated films of the year will be hitting theaters. We are talking about Barbie and Oppenheimer, two very different films that are causing quite the stir online. And the massive hype is now being referred to as Barbenheimer.
It's the double feature no one saw coming.
And I know what it means if the Nazis have a bomb.
Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan's epic about the creation of the atomic bomb, going head-to-head with a movie that could not be more different.
Hi, Barbie!
Hi, Ken! Greta Gerwig's Barbie seemed destined for massive hype, judging from the reactions to this set of photos of Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, but the excitement has taken an unexpected turn.
I, for one, have already purchased my tickets for the double feature.
With Barbie and Oppenheimer opening in theaters on the same day, fans have coined the term Barbenheimer, encouraging people to see the movies back to back.
2 movies in one day is a major throwback to middle school when I had nothing but times.
This is the best day ever. It is the best day ever. Social media lighting up with both memes and merchandise, including t-shirts reading "I survived Barbenheimer" and this mashup movie poster created by Sean Longmore, going absolutely viral.
What does it feel like to be so much a part of this conversation?
It's overwhelming, but wonderful, and I'm so humble and grateful for what was a crazy little joke piece we were putting together. For it to get such attention is something we absolutely just never dreamed of.
Hi, Barbie! Sean's poster for Barbenheimer even catching the attention of Barbie star Simu Liu, who shared the image on Threads.
That's absolutely bonkers to me.
But is Barbenheimer actually a real thing, or just an internet meme? According to AMC Theaters, not only is it real, but over 40,000 tickets have been sold already for the double feature.
The world will remember this day.
The debate over which order to see the two movies in is raging online.
Are people going Oppenheimer, Barbie, or Barbie, Oppenheimer?
The mood that you have leaving Oppenheimer is going to be very different from the mood you have leaving Barbie.
With many saying the dramatic Oppenheimer should be seen first, followed by a Barbie chaser. Tom Cruise even planning to go that route.
I'm going to see them both opening day. It'll probably be like Oppenheimer first and then Barbie, I think.
One thing we know for sure, thanks to Oppenheimer's eye-watering 3-hour runtime, Barbenheimer filmgoers will be at the theaters for over 5 hours. What's your plan of attack going to be for being at the theater for about 6 hours?
It's definitely going to be tough. It's staying awake. I'm probably going to hit up Starbucks in between.
And it's not just fans. Even with the Screen Actors Guild on strike, the casts and crews of the two movies are on board with the Barbenheimer mania. Both Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie showing off their tickets for Nolan's film, while Oppenheimer star Cillian Murphy is ready for Barbie Land.
I'll be going to see Barbie 100%. I can't wait to see it. Yeah, you spend the whole day in the cinema. What's better than that?
All right, we've got good news for Barbenheimer fans. Both movies are getting very positive early buzz ahead of their releases. That's coming on Friday. Well, that does it for this hour of Morning News Now. Thanks for spending your morning with me. The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.